I cut off my family after decades of financial and emotional exploitation. Then they accused me of losing my mind. I published the truth, and it shattered everything they built. You're just the IT guy? That's what my brother Jake said, right before raising his glass in front of 80 people. Then, with the kind of smugness you'd expect from a man who thought charm was a currency, he declared, "We all agreed. Jake gets the memories. I got the $1. 9 million lake house." My mother clapped. My father smiled. Cousin Mayan added, "Fair is fair." No one looked at me. Not one person acknowledged that I had reserved the venue, paid the $4,300 catering bill, hired the jazz band, or ordered the gold-trimmed cake with our parents' wedding date. I did it because Dad told me they couldn't afford it this month. But apparently, what they couldn't afford more was acknowledging me as their son. I wasn't mentioned in the speeches. Not as a son, not as a family member, not even as a human being. And I just sat there, silent, chewing the filet I personally selected, watching my brother joke that he didn't even want the lake house. "What would I do with a whole house?" he laughed. "I don't have a wife or kids. I just let it rot." The room erupted in laughter. Even Grandpa Joe chuckled. But I didn't. I wiped my mouth, set down my fork, and waited. Then, I raised my glass, let the silence stretch just long enough for discomfort to settle, and said, "Congrats. I'll just take what's mine." No malice, just finality. Then I smiled, quietly and unconcerned, like someone who had already decided not to fight. I hadn't come there to argue. I came out of habit. Maybe hope. But that hope had died long before the appetizers. They saw me not as a person, but a utility, a donor, a dependable ghost. That night, I stopped being invisible. I started keeping receipts. I didn't lose sleep. Not out of anger or grief. I was long past that. I stayed up because the patterns were finally clear. Not the moments, the patterns. The lake house wasn't the beginning. It was the confirmation. I remembered paying $9,800 for my sister's wedding banquet. When I asked why she didn't tell me, she laughed and said, "You don't have a spouse or kids. Might as well make yourself useful." I remembered the Christmas I drove 6 hours for, only to find my seat given to a neighbor. "She's alone this year," Mom said. "You'll be fine in the kitchen." I didn't argue. I walked to the kitchen. Quietly. Later that night, my sister texted, "Wow, can't handle being overlooked, huh?" I opened my banking app, froze the mortgage assistance, canceled the family streaming subscriptions, shut down our shared Prime. At 9:04 p.m., I got a text. "We talked about it. You've always been a failure. You ruin every holiday. We don't need you anymore." That was their version of closure. I had paid for their comfort, time and again, landscaping, tuition, upgrades, even my parents' business infrastructure. They called it love, said I was helping. But what they meant was, "You're useful because you don't say no." And I didn't for years. Because I wanted them to see me. To realize I wasn't broken. That I wasn't just the one who got it wrong. But I was never anything more than the scaffolding. They stood on my shoulders and called it family. When I got hurt, they looked away. When I lost an arm in that car crash, my mother told people, "It's fine. He still has one good one." My brother nicknamed me RoboCop at Thanksgiving, like I was a party trick. And Dad, he once said, "We're not going to walk on eggshells just because you had one bad year." He called the decade I spent rebuilding my life one bad year. So I made a list. Not out of pettiness. Not out of vengeance. Out of truth. Every room, every item I had paid for, repaired, or installed. Mine again. The next morning by 9 a.m., I stood in the lake house driveway. My brother opened the door in gym shorts, holding a protein shake. He said nothing, just stared at me, like someone realizing the tide had gone out and the ocean wasn't coming back. First to go, the smart lock I installed. 3 minutes. Dad's sound system? Removed. The 65-inch OLED TV I gifted him so he could watch movies in true surround? Packed. The Wi-Fi mesh network I built for Mom's Zoom calls. Disconnected. By lunchtime, the house still stood, but it didn't work. Not because I broke anything, but because I took back what they never noticed I was holding up. And that was just the beginning. By the time I unplugged the router, the living room already felt foreign. Not visually. It still had the live, laugh, love wall decor and the faded floral couch they refused to replace. But viscerally, it was hollow now, gutted, and I hadn't broken a single thing. I'd simply removed myself. Smart thermostat? Disconnected. Refrigerator's touchscreen? Blank. Security cameras? Offline. Backup generator? No longer linked to remote monitoring. Everything they depended on, quietly, seamlessly, was gone. They didn't even know how deeply they'd relied on me until I vanished from the system. My brother Jake followed me silently from room to room like a man watching an unfamiliar tide roll in. It wasn't until 2 p.m. that he finally spoke. "This is insane." I didn't respond. I was too busy wrapping the espresso machine I gave our mother 2 Christmases ago, the one she said made her feel seen. I almost left it, but then I remembered the clapping. Her applause when they handed my lake house to Jake, as if I were just the sponsor and not the son. So I packed it. Next came the financials. I logged into the mortgage account, withdrew my co-signer authorization, and triggered the refinance review. I already knew the outcome. Without me, they didn't qualify. Phone plan. All 5 lines were under my name. I transferred them. If they didn't accept the transfer within 72 hours, the lines would go dark. Streaming services? Gone. Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, Amazon Prime. Even the shared password manager, wiped. The television in the living room blinked into static. The Fire Stick account logged out. Their Amazon orders? Suspended. I hadn't deleted anything. I'd simply revoked their access. Then I turned to their business. Yes, their business, which, for the past 11 years, had run on the enterprise infrastructure I built and maintained. Cloud backups, email servers, firewall control, licensing systems. Never once did I charge them. I opened the admin panel and started the final deactivation. A simple message appeared across their company dashboard. This system has been maintained at no cost for 11 years. As of today, it has been decommissioned. Thank you. No dramatics. Just fact. I didn't even feel satisfaction. Only a strange quiet, like the calm that comes after a fever breaks. Then came the lake house. I'd never wanted that place, but I'd paid for most of it. Half the repairs, dock renovations, guest cabin updates, all from my accounts. I gathered the invoices, highlighted each transaction, then called my attorney. "Do you want to reclaim or recoup?" he asked. "Both," I replied. He didn't ask questions, just started the paperwork. By dusk, I was back at the house doing a final sweep. The $3,800 dining table? Mine. Bought during a Black Friday sale while they were vacationing in Hawaii, a trip I funded. The patio chairs? Charged to my card during a family emergency. Everything they thought was theirs, loaded into my truck. Jake tried blocking me at one point, standing in the hallway. "You're not taking the flooring, man," he said. I smiled. "I've got receipts." And walked past him. There was only one thing left. The box. Old. Wooden. Tucked in the back of the closet like a forgotten secret. Inside, cards I'd written them over the years. A hospital bracelet. A dried corsage from my sister's high school dance. And a drawing I made when I was 7. Stick figures holding hands under the words, "My family." They had kept it. Through every slight, every betrayal, they had kept that. I stared at it for a long time. Then I placed the box on the dining table, the only item I didn't reclaim. Because I didn't want their memories. I wanted my space back. That night, I drove home. No radio. No calls. No guilt. And for the first time in years, I slept. Not the restless kind. Not the kind where your mind races and replays things. The real kind. Deep. Dreamless. Unburdened. But the silence didn't last. For days passed. No calls. No messages. Not even a cryptic emoji. Just a pressure, like a pipe swelling from the inside, straining against itself. And then it burst. Day 5, 8:17 a.m. A group message arrived. From Mom, Dad, and Jake. "You're overreacting. This was a family decision. We thought you'd understand. This doesn't have to be permanent. Let's fix it. You're acting like a stranger." An hour later, another from Mom. "I'm ashamed that you're trying to punish us instead of talking. This isn't you. You're not a monster." There it was, not remorse. Not responsibility. Just fear. Denial. Projection. They weren't sorry. They were scared. Because for the first time in their lives, the net was gone. Their fixer had left. By lunch, my voicemail was full. 2 identical messages from Dad. "Just call me. Don't do anything stupid." What he meant by stupid was permanent. That evening, Aunt Gloria posted a vague Facebook status. "Some people throw away blood over ego." Subtle. Not enough to name me. But everyone knew. The smear campaign had begun, and it was about to get worse. The smear campaign didn't start with fire. It started with whispers. Subtle, quiet reframing. Not directly to me, about me. I wasn't even in the group chats anymore, but I saw the screenshots. Jake wrote, "He's been acting differently lately. We need to give him space." My mother followed with, "This is what happens when you bottle things up for years. He was always so distant." They weren't reaching out. They were building a narrative. One where I was unstable. Not decisive, erratic. Not setting boundaries, spiraling. Not one of them asked what had happened. No calls. No questions. No curiosity. Because they didn't want my story. They wanted the one they already believed. The quiet, awkward, damaged brother. The helper. The one who'd always comply in the end. But that version of me didn't exist anymore. Then Harper called. Blocked number. I almost didn't pick up. She sounded breathless. "They're trying to bury you." I sat down. "Who?" "Your parents." "Jake." "I overheard them last night. They're putting together a timeline, trying to make it seem like you've been unraveling for years." I didn't say anything. Just let her talk. "They even contacted the therapist you used to see. Your mom asked if there were ever signs, anything she could point to." It clicked in an instant. They weren't trying to fix things. They were trying to erase what I'd done by painting me as unstable. Harper's voice dropped to a whisper. "They want to make the streaming cancellations, the business shutdown, everything, you reclaiming your life, look like a breakdown. Not a choice." And that's when the memory hit me. Flashback. Christmas, the year after the accident. I'd just come home. One prosthetic arm, a quiet dependence on painkillers, and a soul worn thin from surviving the wreckage. I was raw, still learning how to hold a fork again. I walked into the living room and heard my mother talking to my aunt. "He's still got one good arm. It's not like he's really disabled." It wasn't meant to be cruel, but it was. Later that night, Jake kept calling me RoboCop every time I tried to unwrap a gift. Everyone laughed. After dinner, Dad pulled me aside. "We're not going to walk on eggshells just because you had one bad year." One bad year. That's how he described 10 years of physical pain, depression, therapy, surgeries, and starting over. That's how they always reduced it, until it didn't matter at all. So when the emails came, I didn't flinch. 2 anonymous complaints sent to my job's HR department. One vague, concerns about recent emotional changes. One specific, family reports troubling behavior. I traced the IPs. One was from the library in their town. The other? Their home network. They'd stopped pretending. They were trying to discredit me, professionally, socially, emotionally. Turn me into the villain in a story they authored behind my back. I still didn't respond. Not to the emails. Not to the texts. Not to the voicemail Dad left saying, "Just call me. Don't do anything stupid." What he meant was, "Don't make this permanent." But it already was. Then Aunt Gloria posted a vague status on Facebook. Some people throw away blood over ego. Subtle, cowardly, and very on brand. They hadn't just lost access to my help. They'd lost control of their narrative. And they were desperate to get it back. That's when Harper's second call came. "There's more," she said. I braced myself. "They're planning to go public. A big concerned family post. Maybe even reach out to your coworkers." My blood turned cold, but not from fear, confirmation. This wasn't about repair. This was about destruction. And they were playing with fire, thinking I'd stay silent. But they were wrong. Because silence wasn't weakness anymore. It was fuel. I knew the confrontation was coming. They wouldn't be able to resist. And sure enough, Sunday afternoon, 2:04 p.m, they showed up. My mother, my father, Jake, standing in my driveway like they'd brought a casserole. No knock, no text, just 3 people waiting, poised like performers waiting for their cue. I let them stand there. 2 full minutes. Then I opened the door. No smile, no invitation. Just, "You have 5 minutes." My mother cried immediately. Not grief. Not guilt. Exposure. "This all just escalated so quickly," she began, voice trembling. "There's been a lot of miscommunication." My father interrupted, firm but rehearsed. "You've always been intense. But this isn't who you are." Jake remained silent, just clenched his jaw like he was trying not to break character. I looked at each of them. Then I said flatly, "You're not here because you care. You're here because the power's off and you don't know how to live in the dark." Silence. Then to my mother, "You let them say I was crazy." To my father, "You watched it happen." To Jake, "You started it." That's when Jake snapped. "You're throwing away your own family. For what? Pride?" I almost laughed. No, I replied. I'm throwing you out for survival. They weren't used to this version of me. The one who didn't flinch, didn't seek their permission to finish his sentence. My mother tried one last plea. We're your family. I met her eyes. You were, I said. Now you're just people I used to pay for. Then I closed the door. Not a slam, just a soft click. They didn't knock again. They didn't yell. They just stood there, frozen, confused, like actors left on stage after the audience had gone home. Because the story they'd written wasn't mine anymore. And I wasn't their character. They thought I'd stay quiet. Even after everything. After the confrontation, after the smears, after years of silent endurance, they still believed I'd protect the illusion. That I'd keep their secrets. That I'd play my part. But silence isn't loyalty. It's restraint. And mine had expired. So I opened the vault. First, the post. No hashtags. No preamble. Just a caption. For those asking why I went quiet. This is what silence was protecting. Attached were screenshots. Group messages where my mother said, he's always been unstable. Jake writing, he's a sunk cost. My father's suggestion to talk to the therapist for optics. I added one more. The defamation email sent to my job. IP traced back to their hometown library and their home network. No editorial. Just facts. Within an hour, it had over 300 shares. Friends, co-workers, even extended relatives passed it around. There were no debates. No defenses. Just people connecting the dots. Then came the second post. A video, doorbell footage. My mother stood in my driveway crying. My father paced behind her, hurling branches and screaming. You ungrateful little bastard. We gave you everything. I blurred my face. Not to hide, but to center the story on their behavior. And finally, the PDF. Titled Receipts. 41 pages long. Every bank statement showing I paid for their mortgage, tuition, weddings, streaming accounts. Screenshots of business platforms licensed under my name. Signed invoices for dock repairs, home upgrades, emergency expenses. A notarized document confirming I had severed financial ties. No commentary. No accusation. Just evidence. Then I closed my laptop. I didn't refresh the post. I didn't check reactions. Because this wasn't revenge, it was reclamation. It wasn't for them. It was for the people they tried to fool. By evening, my inbox was flooded. Emails from colleagues, childhood friends, distant cousins. Some apologized. Some offered support. Some admitted they'd always suspected something was off. But the one that stayed with me came from my cousin Tasha. They always said you were just the IT guy. We had no idea. I'm sorry. That hit harder than anything else. Just the IT guy? Always background. Always support. They never saw the structure. I was the one holding it up. Until I stopped. The unraveling began the next morning. My mother deleted her social media accounts. My father's email went on indefinite auto-reply. Jake scrubbed his posts, locked his profiles, and ghosted. It wasn't shame. It was exposure. They couldn't spin it anymore. Not with the receipts live. Not with footage circulating. Not when people they once manipulated now saw the cracks. They didn't just lose a son. They lost control of the story. Then, the final move. An email from my father. Subject, if you have 10 minutes. Simple, restrained, rehearsed. We'd like to see you. No expectations. Just closure. I didn't reply, but I showed up. Same house. Same driveway. Same door I walked away from. Jake wasn't there. Just my parents, seated like it was a therapy session. The fireplace was lit, despite it being July. The coffee table held 2 mugs. One red, world's best son. My mother nudged it toward me like a peace offering. I didn't touch it. Thank you for coming, she said, like we were strangers. I nodded. Saturday. My father cleared his throat. We've been thinking. About what we said. About how things escalated. We never meant to make you feel unwanted. His tone was careful. Scripted. Then my mother added. You've always been strong. So capable. We didn't realize how much pressure you were under. That was the refrain. We didn't realize. Never we were wrong. Never we hurt you. Just, oops. Then came the final line. We miss you. I stood. Calm. Unshaken. No, I said. You don't miss me. You miss the infrastructure. You miss the money, the silence, the convenience of the version of me who didn't say no. My mother inhaled sharply. My father looked like someone had unplugged him. I continued. You miss the automatic yes. The free labor. The silent compliance. I turned to my mother. You let them call me unstable. You asked my therapist for proof. Then to my father. You watched them try to bury me. You called it miscommunication. It wasn't. It was a hit job. I saw them shift. Squirm. You don't get to beg for grace after decades of casual cruelty. You don't get to rewrite this. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a transaction. And I had ended my subscription. My mother sobbed. Loud, theatrical. A performance. We're still your parents, she whispered. No, I replied. You were. But you used that title like a credit card with no limit. And now it's maxed out. My father stood, his voice cracking. Is that it? You're really just done? I met his eyes. No. I was done the night you gave away my seat for a neighbor. This. I gestured to the house, the fireplace, the mug. This is me turning off the lights. They had nothing left to say. And I didn't wait for goodbye. I walked out. Past the framed photos that never included me. Past the mug. Past the lit fireplace they'd kept on for appearances. I shut the door behind me. Didn't slam it. Just clicked it shut. Like closing a story. That night, I received one final text from my mother. You'll regret this someday. Family is forever. And I answered with what they never expected. No. Family is something you earn. And you returned it broken. Then I blocked her number. And I slept. Not out of exhaustion. But peace. Because I hadn't just said no to them. I'd finally said yes. To myself. You'd think the story ended when I shut the door. When I blocked their numbers. When I reclaimed the silence they used to fill with need disguised as affection. But closure isn't a moment. It's maintenance. A discipline. A choice you make every day not to go back, no matter how loud the ghosts knock. And that last message from my mother. You'll regret this someday. Family is forever. She was half right. Family is forever. But only if it acts like one. And they stopped being family long before I walked away. I didn't check in. Didn't scroll for their updates. I let their silence grow wild. But for the first time, it wasn't punishment. It was peace. Months passed. Jake's birthday came and went. No text. No reminder in my calendar. For the first time in 14 years, I didn't drive 6 hours to be handed leftovers and sleep on a cot in the laundry room. Christmas? I booked a solo trip to Lisbon. Sat by the sea. Sipped espresso in the sun. Watched seagulls instead of scanning rooms for the first sign of tension. It felt indulgent. Borderline selfish. But it was mine. Then one afternoon, something dropped through my mail slot. A plain white envelope. No return address. No stamp. Inside was a photograph. Jake. Standing alone on the lake house dock. The wood warped and cracked. The once pristine cabin in the background, shuttered, overgrown. A broken railing dangled into the water like an afterthought. On the back, written in shaky black ink. You weren't the hurricane. You were the scaffolding. When you left, it all collapsed. No signature. But I knew the handwriting. Harper. I held that photo for a long time. Not with triumph. With understanding. For years, I thought if I gave enough time, money, silence, they'd love me back. That being needed was the same as being wanted. But I was never the problem. I was just the structure. They never loved me. They loved what I gave them. There's a quote I once read in a therapist's office. I didn't understand it back then. Some people love you as long as you're useful. Others love you even after you stop. I never had the second kind in that house. But I do now. Colleagues who quietly slid coffee across my desk and whispered. That took guts. Friends who saw the posts and didn't ask for details. Just sent. We see you. Even my manager, who slipped me a post-it during a meeting. No one's just the IT guy. It wasn't dramatic. It was restorative. One night, about 6 months after I walked away, my phone lit up. Blocked number. 3 words. We miss you. I didn't reply. Because here's the thing about bridges. I didn't burn ours. I just removed my name from the deed. They can stand on the ashes and scream betrayal all they want. But I know what really happened. They built a life around what I gave. Then acted shocked when it crumbled without me. These days, I wake up to quiet. Not the anxious kind. Not the they're mad again kind. But the kind that feels like healing. My money stays where I put it. My time belongs to me. When I laugh, it's real. When I say no, I don't explain. And when I show up, it's by choice, not duty. Because I didn't destroy the family. I just walked away from the story they were telling about me. I didn't sever ties. I cut the wires they were feeding off. And I didn't exile myself. I came home, to myself.